I will call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. Um, and maybe I'm just going to go a little bit out of order. So maybe just go to new business first and new member welcome. So David, thank you so much for volunteering and getting sworn in and becoming part of our committee. I know all of us have been really excited to have you join and just wanted to say welcome, but I don't know, maybe turn over to you. If you want to just, say a few things, up to you. It's really your call.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you. Um, uh, Very pleased to be joining this group. Paul reached out to me. Oh, when was it, Paul? Sometime the middle of last year or towards the latter part of last year.
Something
Um,
like
and
that.
and mentioned that there was an opening on this committee. I used to be part of the community preservation committee 3 years ago and left that group along with the youth commission to pursue music. I am involved actually in four choirs, lead singer for a band. So I was not planning to be have anything to do with town business. I was happily doing music, and Paul reached out to me and said, "Hey, this opening came up on the Affordable Housing Trust." And that piqued my interest because for a couple of reasons. Number one, my wife mentioned it, and she worked with I think you and Al on school committee, Paul and Al. And she said, "Hey, this something that aligns with your background." So I've been in affordable housing for what, 38 years or so, in various capacities in property management, asset management, advocacy, and it seemed like a nice fit. So I decided if I was going to join town government again, that it would be something like this, that something that I'm passionate about, something that aligns with my background, and something that I think I could potentially add value to. I take the approach at the outset of being more of a sponge, kind of understanding what the objectives are of the Affordable Housing Trust, what's been tried, what you're looking to accomplish, and kind of like a blank canvas is the way I kind of look at it. And then I can kind of figure out how my background and what I know, who I know, could add value. So that's kind of the way I look at it. And I'm ha super happy to be a part of this group. And again, this would be the only thing that I would do that would get me back into town government, that is in addition to my singing. I'm also involved in the Big Brother, Big Sister program, which I get a lot of benefit and value out of. So I'm very careful about how I manage my time, but I'm very pleased to be part of this group. So thank you for having me.
Well, I can definitely say for the committee, and I'll turn it over to others if they want to say anything, but definitely welcome. And we are thrilled to have you. And we are actually really thrilled for your background and your experience too, as well. We promise to give you one meeting grace period before we start peppering you with a whole bunch of questions. But
It's all
so, anyways,
good.
yeah, but thank you. So, but open up to other committee members.
Welcome
I'll say
and looking forward to working with you.
Thank you.
likewise, and I think maybe half a meeting grace period is enough,
Yeah,
but
that's I was going to say a quarter. You've got about 15 minutes.
There you go. Well, I should have said that I currently work for Bank of America, in the an investment management capacity. So I asset manage a portfolio of properties across the country, specifically through the affordable housing, the low-income housing tax credit program. And so I'm very familiar with LIHTC. I'm familiar with sort of the objectives from the developer standpoint, from the investor standpoint. So yeah, I certainly will have some opinions and be able to share uh, some of my background, but at the same time, I'm more interested at this point in really kind of learning what this group has done. I did connect and kind of take a peek at the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Strategic Financial Plan that spanned 2023 to 2027. And I think when I was with the CPC, there was that was kind of being introduced a few years ago. So I haven't really dug into it, but I think that had a lot of information about what the financial objectives and strategic objectives were of the group. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do is just dig in and learn and kind of fill my sort of knowledge base and then kind of align with the toolkit approach.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we can send over to you, if Paul hasn't already, but we did finish our housing production plan just last July. It was also finally approved after a few tweaks, I think just last month, I think, Ellen, right? Or recent. And that's a really good thing as well. We'll send over to you. We'll give you a good background too. So
Perfect.
excellent. All right, great. So I'm going to go back up to meeting minutes. Um, and so start with the October 16th, 2025 meeting minutes. And Paul, thank you again for taking the burden of those on. I appreciate that. Um, so just see if anyone has any comments.
I made a couple really minor comments. Yeah, I think these were great. Thank you, Paul, for putting these together.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, Doug, would it be helpful to go through them?
Yep, yeah, please. Yep. I have it up on my screen.
Right. So let's see. So the bottom of the first page, line 45,
Yep.
there's just a typo in which would be
Oh, yep.
Board of
Yep.
Trustees.
Great catch. Got it.
And
Board.
then just below that in 46, I think it was more reducing the residential tax burden um, versus tax base.
Yep.
Great. Okay.
And then just in the footer, updating the
Oh, yeah.
meeting date.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, got it.
Yeah, and I think that's it. So thank
Okay.
you.
Any other comments? All right, great. Um, any comments on, because I think we could take both these at the same time for a vote. Any comments on the November 13th
Actually, could we
meeting
do
minutes?
this one first? Because I wasn't at the November
Okay.
13th.
Yep, I can do that.
Hmm.
Um, do I have a motion to approve the October 16th meeting minutes as the corrections made or recommended by Ellen?
So moved.
Second.
Al second. Okay. All in favor? Al,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Ellen,
Hi.
and I'm going to say David because you are officially a member, but feel free to abstain.
I will abstain.
All right. Excellent. Um, all right. So now we will go to the November 13th meeting minutes. Any
Minutes
comments?
to me.
Look good to me.
I think that's the first time Ellen has not found something on the meeting minutes.
I can read them again if you want me
No,
to.
no, 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 it's good. I'm not a nervous person, but I'm like, okay, I got to make sure I've caught everything.
That's not my intent. I just
No,
can't
no, no,
help
no. No, I said, first of all, so Ellen, I'm only joking. So first of all, very much, everyone reading the meeting minutes, obviously, right? So important part of the record. So I'm just, all right. All right. So same thing. Do I have a motion to approve the November 13th meeting minutes?
So moved.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'm going to abstain, but I'll second.
Okay. All right. All in favor. Al?
Abstain.
Okay. Um, Paul?
I,
Ellen? David?
Abstain.
And Doug is an I. And also, just for the record, I'm also an I on the October 16th. I don't know if I actually said that, so I'm an I on both. All right, excellent. Thank you very much. All right. So new business, we went through new member welcome. Um, so next item is the Affordable Housing Trust CPC application. So um, Alan, I don't know if you want to give an update on this. I think last time we were both at the meeting, but I think there may have been a CPC meeting since then. But Alan, do you want to just give us a quick update of what you think where we are in this one?
Sure. So time all blends together at this time of year. So I don't think we've CPC has met again since we were both there. We are meeting next week, next Thursday. So um CPC did vote on kind of the end of the technical review at the last meeting for any project that was ready for that step, which this one was. So it was a unanimous vote to move the project forward to kind of the next phase. So there was nothing in terms of a kind of position from CPC on whether to support the transfer of funds, but everyone agreed that the application was complete, that it met all the CPC guidelines. Freddie Gillespie, the CPC consultant, is now starting the process of drafting a warrant article. And so there will kind of continue to be those conversations with the trust as that moves forward. And I'd say the other update from that meeting is that we have draft financials from for CPC. So it looks like the housing balance, and this is still subject to change, will be in about the $50,000 to $60,000 range above the $100,000 that was kind of left in that bucket since our last application. So this year's application was for the balance above that $100,000. So as the warrant article comes together, it will be written to reflect something in that range.
Great. And I think, Alan, when we were both there, I think we answered again. I think, we had a bunch of questions. I don't think anything that controversial. I think we answered all the questions for um, the CPC. There was obviously one member I still think that was a bit concerned about just the city-owned property, the water tower parcel, which came up towards the end. But I think that was speaking, I think she was speaking more as an individual per se. It wasn't necessarily the CPC, speaking on that, but just more so that you guys are aware. But otherwise, I thought it went pretty smoothly. Um, and David, for your background, so last town meeting, we actually got town meeting to approve, and CPC did support it, although it was, took a little bit of extensive effort, right, to get it done. But um, affordable housing trust funds have been building up with CPC for some time, and so I think we transferred almost 500,000. I'm trying to remember, Ellen, the exact amount, but it was a big amount to actually to the Affordable Housing Trust, so we would not have to go to them. Again, if we're trying to acquire a two-family or do some type of affordable work, the burden of going through town meeting or CPC and town meeting for those funds is really challenging, right? And so now the good news is we have the majority of the funds with us, besides some other funds that have been deposited over time from different developments. And it's been our approach that, some towns do this automatically. I don't think CPC is ready for this, but so each year the idea is that they want to leave 100,000 with CPC in case some other group besides AHT want to do something related to affordable housing, which by the way, I don't think has ever happened, right? Or not since, Stockwell Farm. So it's been a long time. And so we did agree to that. It made sense. We can leave 100,000 there. But then the idea is that each year we're probably going to submit this to say anything that's over 100,000 we'd like transferred, right? Because we obviously have discovered over the last year, you know, these things can be quite expensive. Plus, if we are going to try to acquire, a home or do something, you got to move fast in the real estate market. So, anyways, but just more for background. So, I think as Ellen said, I think we're on track to be back at this Springtown meeting. And Ellen, I think we'll be back in front of them so that they will actually take a formal position, right, to vote and support, right?
Yes, yeah, so that's still to come. I can update everyone on the timeline after CPC meets next week. But that's usually a little bit closer to town meeting. But like you said, I do anticipate kind of further conversations as we get closer to CPC members kind of taking a position, as you said, and I think probably some continued questions on uh yeah, how the trust kind of intends to use the money on activities going forward, around, like you said, the town owns property. So I think yeah, I agree that those conversations will continue.
Okay. I guess any other questions from any of the members on the CPC application? All right. Hearing none, I'll move to the 55 plus housing bylaw update. And David, I might just give you a little background on this one, then I'll turn it over to Alan, who has been spearheading this. So one of the things that we identified in the housing production plan update is that the existing 55 plus housing bylaw has a cap, I think, of 7% of units in town. And the town has hit that cap. And so one of our proposals, or one of our, I guess, for our strategic plan or housing production plan update was to basically modify this, right, to allow more 55 plus senior housing in town. Seemed like a bit of an artificial cap. And so there's been we've been working, Ellen particularly, we've been working very closely with the planning board, to come up with a bylaw. And there's been several drafts, and we'll make sure that we loop you into, that email chain as well. So anyways, but we're excited about this. And it's, again, our goal is affordable housing trust is not just necessarily about big A affordable housing, right? It's also about housing production, right? And how can we help having more housing typologies as well? So it's not just single family homes, but townhomes or 55 plus or other types. So just give you a sense of that. But Alan, I'll turn it over to you for an update of where we are.
Sounds good. So I sent over, I think early this afternoon, the updated draft that Marnie Houlihan on the planning board has been working on, that incorporated a lot of what we talked the last time we met with planning board. Additional comments from Mimi, and Marnie also connected with Melissa Danza, the conservation agent, on some of the language around density calculations and wetlands. So a big thank you to Marnie for kind of keeping all the threads in this organized. And yeah, so the draft that planning talked about on Monday and that came over to all of us really reflects a lot of what we've talked about. I think the biggest change is around the kind of payment in lieu piece that we have been talking about. And so um, initially this was phrased to really be a payment in lieu structure that if developers, for whatever reason, didn't feel like they could incorporate the required number of affordable units on site, they could go to the planning board and request payment in lieu instead. And at planning's meeting on Monday, they talked more about this and are more comfortable with really this not being an opt-out, that if you are building anything, you have to have at least one affordable unit. And above that, this payment structure would be used for kind of the fractional units. So they're looking to increase, we talked about a 12.5% calculation for affordability, kind of to mirror other parts of the code. So if you're building 4 units, you have to have one affordable. With adjusting the density to 6 units per acre, planning updated this to 16.67%, so 1 out of 6 units. So we can talk about how that sits with us. But so the idea would be that if you're building 8 units, you would have to build one of those as affordable, and then kind of the fractional payment would kick in for the rest of that calculation. Um, So I think that's kind of the biggest change, and wanted to talk through how that sounds to this group.
So I will open up to other folks first.
So the big question I have is, there's a fine line between what is financially feasible for a developer versus, what simply says, well, that this is just another way of making developers go away. We have kind of a fairly negative reputation with the development community. Um, so I don't have a good feel for that, but perhaps uh, others may.
Yeah, just from our past discussions, that jumped out as a little high to me. And I'm not sure I follow the logic of, I get there's 6 units per acre, but that doesn't necessarily mean all these projects are going to be 6 units. So I don't know. To me, I think I skewed more towards that 12% and maybe use the fractional formula, if they're not building enough units to, for the 12% to kick in, I guess.
Yeah.
I basically agree with Al. I'm afraid of, scaring developers away if we're too high.
Yeah. So
Ah,
I think my quick thoughts are I'm definitely fine with them not having it as an opt-out, and so the payment would just be for the fractional units. I mean, I think that's fine, right? I think the goal was just to give the planning board the option, right? And maybe it would result in a larger, affordable housing development, because the funds could come to us per se. But I could understand the uphill, discussion on that, type of thing. I mean, you guys know where I stand. I mean, I definitely would agree with Al and Paul. It should just be 12.5% consistent with others, right? I mean, again, 10% keeps us consistent with Safe Harbor. The additional 2.5% helps us continue to build more affordable housing above that. And it doesn't preclude a developer from doing more, but likely they wouldn't. But again, there's such a need for 55 plus housing, right? And we have a lot of 55 plus folks living in big, huge homes, right? That don't need to be there and they want to stay in town and there's very little option. So I get the math they're trying to do, but again, I think this would be, I mean, that's pretty high percentage. And again, as you guys know, we talked about Boston, Cambridge and Somerville all have 20%. And, private development has, really stopped, because of that. It's such a high threshold. There's been a lot of 100% affordable housing, projects. But so, anyways, but I would definitely be in favor of keeping it at the 12.5% consistent with the other districts that have been recently passed. I don't see a reason to be more than that.
Doug,
Yeah. No,
you kind of answered the question that I was going to ask, which was basically how does it compare to other districts, regions, towns, just sort of for a frame of reference, and you talked about the Boston Cambridge experience, and then so the 12.5% consistent with what other you know sort of let's call them competitors or other
Yeah, I think David,
jurisdictions.
so too, I think the two most recent zoning efforts in Southport itself, I think was at 12.5%. So the mixed use district in downtown, right? I believe Ellen is 12.5%. Um,
yep.
and then Ellen, I think you also found, or Paul, I think one of you guys, I think found a few other comps, in other towns. And I think it was a range of like 10 to 15%. I'm trying to remember. I think definitely the urban areas of Boston, Somerville and Cambridge are like the peak, right? 20, you know. And then we've kind of found a mixed bag. I think we all agreed. I mean, we originally, I think, were starting at 10% because we wanted to at least be consistent for Safe Harbor with Chapter 40B, right? We didn't want to lose. And then we originally met with the planning board, and I think, Ellen, if I'm not mistaken, I think they were the ones saying, well, I think, or you brought up 12.5% would be consistent. So this is definitely a jump or a bit of a surprise to me from the planning board itself. But again, I also can see like they just were probably doing simple math because they wanted at least one unit if it was a 1 acre site. But that has real huge ripple effects if someone's trying to do like, 2 or 3 acres. So at least my perspective.
Yeah, I agree with that. And David, I'll make sure to send this to you too. We have a document kind of pulling together, like you said, some of those comps and resources as we've been working on the bylaw. And so, like Doug said, 12 and a half for what's in the downtown district. That's what's in our major residential development. Um, MBTA communities was 10% because that was kind of the state kind of template, unless you wanted to do a whole, right, economic analysis. And then when we looked at others around us, like Doug said, it really is 10 to 15. Northborough is at 15 for all multifamily development, as is Westboro. But it's not many are above that 15 around us. And those 20% are really more like Boston, Cambridge, Somerville, which are just really different
Outliers,
markets.
sure.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, and I think like you said, kind of the logic behind it makes sense, but I think it feels a little precarious to be going much higher than that. So I think we can share that back with planning because it feels like that's where we're all landing.
Yeah, and
I'll make a motion that we would support a 12.5% um, affordable housing rate. If we wanted to go on the record.
Mhm. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All right. All in favor, Al,
Aye.
Paul,
I,
Ellen, and David,
Aye.
and Doug is aye. All right, great. Yeah, so Ellen, if you could, let them know, I'll put this obviously in the meeting minutes. And then one other comment I had on this. So I do appreciate the 6 units per acre, right? I'm sure, I'd love more, but like that's honestly for the type of housing, like the senior housing development that we've been seeing in town. I feel like that's a good density, and very likely palatable for town meeting as well too. And 2 acres could be 12 units. We could see 3 or 4 acres, becoming a nice kind of 20 units. And again, I do think 55 plus, it's great to have community, right? So that you have a nice, I would say critical mass, but like just a nice grouping. But so I just want to acknowledge that too, because I know that was also a discussion. I think they were more like at 3 units per acre or half that. And I think that was our perspective. That just seemed just not a sufficient density, because this really is probably townhome style or flat type style. So that was just at least, could become apartments potentially, but that was at least, I just wanted to at least mention that.
I think in a lot
Yeah.
of cases you're going to be septic limited anyway.
Yeah, correct.
Mhm.
I've been doing a lot of work in the wastewater committee looking for places that would take the effluent, and they're few and far between in town.
Right.
All right. So Ellen, the next step, it sounds like you'll get back to them. What do you think the planning board is, or just in curious of timing of the warrant article or next steps, just curious, where do you think the next steps are?
Yeah, so it sounded like I wasn't able to attend Monday's meeting, but tried to listen in as much as I could after. So they are starting the process of opening public hearings for this and all the other zoning articles that are being proposed for town meeting. So I think there have to be 2 public hearings for a zoning article. So they just wanted to get that ball rolling, knowing that we were talking about this week. So I can share our feedback with Marnie and then um, let everybody know when those hearings will be scheduled just as part of their regular planning board meetings. So any of us can attend that want to
Yeah.
and can post if needed.
Yeah, and yeah, definitely. I was going to say, I'll definitely make sure I post agendas for those. And I definitely think, given this is a key element for us, who of those who can attend, and it doesn't have to be all of us, but it'd be great to make sure we at least have coverage, right? At least one of us being at those meetings. That would be great. Um, okay, great.
yeah,
Ellen, thank you so much for doing this. Good.
just one other question on
Yeah.
that. Did anyone else find the section G there, the fractional unit payment? It was just hard for me to follow.
Yeah. So I think, yeah.
I guess what
So
I'm
I think
concerned
this
about is
was,
when you have stuff like this at town meeting that's confusing,
yeah.
it can really derail things. I think. So I don't know if this is standard language in this kind of thing, then I guess that's okay. But if there's any way to simplify it, that would be good.
Yeah. No, that's good feedback. And I think this was the newer section to kind of replace what was the payment in lieu structure. So I don't know if they pulled this from somewhere, but I think we can definitely look at that and try and make sure it's clear.
Okay, thanks.
Ellen, I might suggest that relay back comments. I mean, maybe also checking in, maybe town council should review this one, right? Because there might be I mean, they may have already have, but if they haven't, it could be good to pull town council on that specific provision. And I do agree with Paul. If it's confusing, that's like, not a good thing as you go into, as we all know, going into town meeting.
Yeah, I'll share that.
All right. We will be on the select board meeting agenda for next Tuesday, the 20th. They asked us to come in and just provide an update. Right now I am planning on attending, and I'm going to check my schedule again to make sure I am here. I believe I am here. So yeah, I am planning on attending. I did post an agenda. Feel free again if anybody would like to attend. Um, Andrew Dennington did ask me if we were going to do a presentation. I wasn't planning on doing a presentation. I think I was just going to plan on really doing this verbally. I was going to type up some notes beforehand, but just kind of give them a sense of what we've been. They just asking for an update where we've been over the last year. But Al, I don't know if you have other thoughts on this before we go
I would
into. I mean,
recommend having one or two slides with sort of highlights.
okay.
Yeah, we can talk about how we, have investigated purchasing several properties, but, have been unable to so far um, find something that we could reasonably afford. We can talk about the over 55 and, so a couple of other, just some quick bullet points. You need to provide those in advance so they can be in the packet. I always find that helps people understand what we're going to talk about.
Okay. I think Andrew said he needed it by Friday, so I will see what I can do between now and Friday.
Doesn't
But
have to be fancy.
gotcha. Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions on that? All right. If none, next is MHP's technical assistant application. I believe Paul, I think you jumped in on this one and with Ellen, but I'll defer to you guys for an update.
Yes, Ellen and I worked on this and we submitted it just before their deadline, I believe. Basically, what it amounts to is the idea is to have them help us with some project that we want to pursue. And for us, I mean, without having a specific development project in mind, we came up with basically a threefold goal. And the first part was developing a plan for systematically identifying potential affordable housing opportunities, whether it's existing homes or available lots. Um, I think to date we've been basically Al goes out and finds stuff, and which is great, but I think I don't know a more systematic approach might be better. Nothing that there's anything wrong with what Al's been doing, but a second point was developing additional revenue streams beyond the CPA funds. And the third was learning about potential development partners and strategies for leveraging the funds that we have. So remains to be seen how well that's going to fit with, what they have in mind for the kind of assistance they offer, but at least we threw our hat in the ring. So
Oh, that's honestly that's great, and I know that was short notice, so Paul, really appreciate you jumping in and handling that. So, do we have a sense of time frame where we might hear back? I'm just more curious, the timeline around decisions by them or how it works.
Should
I
be
don't,
sometime this month. So I don't know when exactly. I also don't know what I'm allowed to ask at work. But it should be in the next done 100 of those ethics trainings and don't know if I can ask a question. But I would think sometime in the next couple weeks, because it does kind of kick off early in the year. Um, and yeah, I'll just second appreciation of Paul for handling so much of this and getting it submitted. And yeah, I have no idea how many applications came in, but I am hopeful that this is a good fit. It is TA specifically for housing trusts, and really around, I think, the type of like strategic work that we're trying to do, versus like a project specific, they say a couple of times like it's not pre-development support. So I think it really is more of this kind of support for the committee to do this type of work. So yeah, we'll see when we hear. But yeah, I
And
think it was great
Ellen, if
to
you're
submit it.
unclear about sort of ethical guidelines, excuse me, the AG has, an on-call attorney you can talk to who, if you
Yeah.
talk to him, they'll give you an opinion and that sort of cover that would, you'll get some guidance in terms of exactly what you can do and how to, go forward with a clean conscience.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, just want to know
Yeah.
when their announcements will be made. Nothing more than that. So I'll give them a call.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think you can also have Paul call too. That avoids the issue too.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Is there a cost associated with this, or this is an entirely free service that is for a potential opportunity?
It's free.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I was kind of hoping was, I mean, whatever they do for us, I think would be replicable for anybody else. So
Mhm.
kind of hoping they'll see it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, great. Next is the housing production plan update. Again, I think the update is we are finally and officially approved, right, Ellen? All signed off, and I think we're good for what, 5 years or 3 years? I'm trying to remember. How good is the plan for 3, 5,
5 years.
5 years?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes. So we got our official letter from HLC. So we are, yeah, all in compliance.
And I think I will definitely be thinking about having a tracking list for whoever, who I'm chair obviously now, but as it changes, but just so that we have 1 year in advance, we will know that we need to
Yeah.
start that process. David, particularly Ellen, I think we did a really fast track process to make sure that we got it done, but we did, which was awesome. So right by the deadline too. Um,
And I'm sure we'll
okay.
save whatever work that was done so that it streamlines the next time you have to do it.
Goal.
Um, so again, I think those are the main agenda items. We do have, sorry, never want to say anything. But I think the next 3 items again are just generally placeholders. I don't have any specific topics for those today, but I do open up to the committee if any of the next 3 items everybody wants to bring anything up at this point, which is financing approaches, strategies for affordable housing, or potential parcels.
Um, I've got two potential parcels, because I'm a troublemaker. One is the parcel that we made an offer on earlier in this. And I'm being vague specifically because we did it in executive session, and that the larger parcel has now come on the market, and I don't know whether we would like to have another bite at the apple. Um, if so, I think we should discuss it in executive session.
Okay.
But the parcel is on the market. And it looks like the prior occupants have moved on. So we did say we might think about it again when it came on the market. The second one, and again, I don't know much about this. I'm given to understand that there is at least a potential project in the MBTA Communities Act on Southville Road. And it might be productive to talk to that applicant and see, if we could assist in the financing in return, perhaps for getting an additional affordable unit or something like that. So, yeah, I'm happy to take the action item on that if the board is at least willing to authorize me to pick up the phone and ask some questions.
Sorry, Al, which parcel was that again? Second one?
Uh, there's a parcel on Southville Road. I think it's 4 acres on the south side, east of the 85 intersection. And,
Okay.
you know, that's about as much as I know about it right now. Other than, I heard this through Scuttlebutt that there was an interest in doing that. And
There
Al,
was
do
a
you know if it's
presentation.
go ahead. Go
Oh,
ahead, Al.
sorry.
No, go ahead. You go first.
Uh, no, they came before planning board, not this week, maybe their meeting 3 weeks ago, with kind of, yeah, a very initial first conversation. And Al, I think that's a great idea to start, talking to them. And I think that's kind of one of the ways we've been thinking about kind of how to, kind of leverage the amount of funding that we have, that if there is, development that's already happening, how we can, form or strengthen those relationships. The development team, I wasn't familiar with, but I recognize one of the names as someone who lives in town. And so I think, being able to, yeah, connect with them. And, as you said, this is really the beginning of their process. So I think it's a great time to start those conversations.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, again, at least to reach out and ask the question. Again, they're required to have 10%, right, under the MBTA Communities Act. I think we've spent a lot of time over the last years. We looked at, acquiring a single family home or doing ADUs. I mean, I think the goal was, any way to get a unit for 2 or 300,000, another affordable unit, right? Just saying that out loud, right? So it'd be great to explore to see, is there a certain amount that makes sense, and if they come back and say, hey, yeah, give us $750,000 for one affordable unit, well, the answer is, well, we know that answer, which is no, right? But I think it'd be good to at least explore it, right? There's definitely, I would think, from a developer's perspective, there's probably a break point where they become neutral, or even it's a bit accretive to them, and so could be interesting at least to have the discussion. So I'm not opposed to it. Um,
I've been thrown out of worse places.
all right. Let's see. Okay. Any other topics? I think we do have executive session, which I think we should go into executive session. But before that, just wanted to see if there was any other agenda items or comments, either from committee members or from attendees. I think we do have two attendees. I don't see any raised hands, but just I'll pause and see if anybody else wants to bring anything else up.
Just one quick comment, that what also came over with the 55 plus bylaw was a second bylaw related to us that planning's proposing for Springtown meeting. That's basically just to swap every mention in our current code of SHOPC with the Affordable Housing Trust. So they've been working on what the actual details are, and planning's the one that needs to sponsor it, or select or ZBA, I guess, but planning is intending to do so. So just something for us to look over and, know that that's coming forward, just to kind of clean up the code.
Okay, great. Well, we will definitely support that one. That'd be a good cleanup. All right. Okay, so I do not see any raised hands, so I'm going to read the next part. So the board will be entering into executive session per MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21, and not returning to open session to discuss potential property acquisition, exemption number 6, as the chairs determined that open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the town's position. Do I have a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor. Al,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
David?
Aye.
And Doug is aye. All right. Thank you guys for that. Now give me a second for this logistics. All right. So I need to remember where I did this before. Okay, there we go.